A very good afternoon to one and all, and welcome to a new video of our teaching series. Today I am going to discuss about biomechanics of the hip joint. This is a very crucial concept when you try to read up about hip arthroplasty, especially, and also when you read up about hip arthritis or the other avascular necrosis of hip causing arthritis, all the conditions basically causing pathology at the hip joint, this concept becomes extremely crucial, and applied concepts of this are always asked in the viva. So very important to understand this. I'll try to keep it as simple and concise as much as possible for the ease of understanding. So let's go ahead and start off with it. So the hip joint is a type 1 liver. So during the course of this video, we'll come across many terminologies which are part of basic physics which we studied in our 11th and 12th, and you all know it already. So I'll just be revising and reinforcing what are these concepts for the ease of our understanding. So what is a type 1 liver? So to make it simple, any liver consists of three parts. There is a fulcrum, we'll call it F, load and effort. So these three parts will always be present in any type of liver. So a type 1 liver is the one in which the fulcrum lies at the center with the load and the effort on either sides. Alright, so hip joint is a type 1 liver. So we'll just label what is the fulcrum, load and effort in case of the hip joint. So let's consider this is the medial side and this is the lateral side. Okay, so the fulcrum is obviously the hip joint at which the forces are acting. The load which is being exerted on the medial aspect is the body weight. Alright, and the effort which is produced on the hip joint on the lateral aspect is the abductor force. Alright, so now where are these being exerted? So I hope you understood this. It is a type 1 liver with load and effort and the fulcrum. So the load, so we'll draw the same diagram again. So as we said, the load is the body weight, we'll call it as B. The load will be exerted, that is the body weight will come down through the center of gravity. Where does the center of gravity lie? Another commonly asked question, just anterior to the S2 vertebra. Just anterior to S2 vertebra. Remember this as well, very commonly asked question. Okay, so the body weight goes through the center of gravity, that is just anterior to the S2, and the abductor force obviously will act at the greater trochanter, since this is where the abductor muscles are attached. So the abductor force will call as capital A. So this is acting over here, this is acting over here, this is the hip joint. Alright, now this is the distance, this is the center of the head of the femur. So this is the distance from the greater trochanter to the center of the head of the femur. So we'll call this as small a. And this is the distance from the center of gravity to the center of head of the femur. So we'll just call this as small b. I'll tell you why we are labeling this. So there is another concept, another new terminology that now I am introducing from the concept of physics is moment, also called as torque. I'm sure you have heard this, you have studied this, just reinforcing this concept. So consider there is a line, there are 2 points on this. if we apply a force, that is there is a fixed point and there is a, this is the fixed point, we'll call it as F, and this is the mobile point. So if we apply a perpendicular force over the mobile point, okay, we'll call this as small f. Always remember, the most crucial part of this is that the force has to be perpendicular. It will produce a moment, that is torque, along the fixed point, and this moment, that is torque, will be equivalent to, if we consider this distance as a, equivalent to the force, perpendicular force, that is exerted on the mobile point, that is F, multiplied by the distance at which it is located from the fixed point, that is small a in this case, that is small a. So remember this equation, magnitude of force perpendicular multiplied by distance from the fixed point. So we'll apply the same concept over here. So there are two forces creating a couple around the hip joint, that is the body weight and the abductor force. So these two moments, we'll call this moments, not forces. So these two moments are, so this, if we consider capital A as the abductor force into small a as the distance, so it will be A multiplied by A, which will be the force on this side. And similarly on this side, the moment will be capital B multiplied by small b. So this is the moment on the lateral aspect and this is the moment on the medial aspect. So these two are acting around the hip joint. So logically these have to be equal always for the hip joint to remain stable, or else the hip joint will become unstable. So this has to be equivalent to this. Just remember, we will call this as equation number 1. I hope you understood this. So the medial forces have always to be equivalent to the lateral forces for the hip joint to remain stable. Moving on, so we'll write down this equation again. Abductor force, okay, into distance equivalent to body weight into distance. So this is the equation that we derived. Now how, this is a lot of maths and physics that we talked. Now we'll talk about how to apply the same concept clinically. So the body weight and the distance are constant. What we need to do over here is to decrease the abductor force. Now you will ask, why we have to decrease the abductor force? Why can't we just change the other variable? This is because studies have found that the abductor force in stance gait as well as during motion is directly proportional to rate of degeneration of the hip. Rate of degeneration of hip. So the abductor force, if it is more is generated during walking, the rate of degeneration of the hip will be more. So basically we have to decrease this. So we will have to decrease this variable. I hope you understood this concept. So we have to decrease the abductor force. Now the next question arises is that how will we decrease the abductor force? Just like that. That is like an uncontrollable variable. We can't really control the abductor force ourselves. So for this value now becomes crucial. That is the distance of the greater trochanter from the center of the femur head. Okay. So as this whole equation has always to remain constant, so we want a decrease in this. So we will have to increase this. If we increase this, automatically this will decrease to maintain the whole equation. So we will have to decrease this small a. Now for this I will just refer you to another diagram which I had posted few days ago, okay, on my Instagram story. So coming to this diagram, this is nothing but a representation of what I had showed, the concept of the liver. Okay, so this is the distance, this is the abductor tension which we have called AF. This is the distance which we need to reduce basically. So center of hip or the center of the femur head to the greater trochanter is the small a which we need to decrease. Alright, so I hope you understood this diagrammatically. Now we will see how we can increase that. We need to increase the distance in order to decrease the abductor force that is acting around the hip. So we will just classify how we can increase this distance. So it can be increased during the surgery or also by lifestyle modifications. So these are the two ways in which we can increase this distance. So we will first talk how can we increase it during the surgery. So in a total hip arthroplasty or a hemiarthroplasty hip, we have two components, acetabular and femoral. So by a change in either or both of this, we can increase the distance. Okay, so we'll first see how by changing the acetabulum or by the acetabular component we can change this small a. So the acetabular component, something which every one of us must have heard while doing the arthroplasty, medialization of acetabulum. This is the most common technique. This is the most common technique by which we can increase the small a which we were talking about. Obviously, because small a is greater trochanter to the center of hip. If we are medializing the acetabulum, we are basically taking the center of hip joint more medially. So this distance will increase. So how is this achieved? I am not going into the details of this, just the conceptual part. So medialization, how will it be achieved? With increased reaming of acetabulum. So a more sized acetabulum which will cause the hip joint center to move more medially. Increased reaming of acetabulum. Alright, and placing it in a more medial position. So this is regarding the medialization of the acetabulum. Now coming to what we can change in the femur. So the opposite of medialization will be lateralization. So first way in which we can achieve this will be lateralization of the greater trochanter. This will cause now the center of the hip joint is remaining constant. We are just taking this lateral point which is the greater trochanter more laterally. So there will be increased in the small a. That is the distance which we are talking about. So lateralization of greater trochanter is one way in which we can achieve this. The second way is a topic that I have posted a post about just recently, that is femoral offset. So even by changing the femoral offsets in a particular way, we can achieve this. So I'll just go back to the diagram which I had posted the other day for explaining the same. So this is the diagram, beautiful diagram from Campbell. Always keep referring to this. Okay, so I'll just zoom this. Now it is clear. Okay, so logically thinking, what we have to do is we have to increase the distance between the greater trochanter and the center. So we have to increase this distance basically. So first people thought, what people did is they increased the neck length. So if the neck length increases, so this distance increases, the center will go more medially and more superiorly. Automatically this distance will increase. So increase of neck length. Just remember all this. I'll then tell what was done and what was not. So increase in neck length is one way in which we can achieve this. The second way in which this can be achieved. So with the neck length, the problem was that there was limb length discrepancy, obviously. So limbs became longer, which was not really appreciated, and just for the sake of decreasing the abductor force. So people thought, and they devised another way. So if you, this is the neck shaft angle, alright, just drawing it approximately. If you decrease this angle, that is you put the head into more varus, again the center will come more medially relatively, thus increasing the length. So decrease in angle, neck shaft angle or head shaft angle. Okay, placing it into more varus. This was thought to be up to a limit. So the limit is 127 degrees, just to remember in case anyone asks. So 127 degrees is the limit to which you can place it into varus in order to bring the center of the hip joint more medially. Along with this, what recently they do is that this is the collar. They place this collar more medially over the shaft. So automatically, so this whole part goes more medially. So the center of the hip joint moves more medially. So I'll just jot down all the three things that we just discussed. Okay. So number one was increasing neck length, which is not done now since it caused limb length discrepancies. Number two was decreased angle, that is placing it into more varus, limit is 127 degrees. And number three, which is the most frequently done thing now to achieve this, is placing collar of the neck more medially over the shaft. Alright, another common way and the last way in which this can be achieved, I'll again have to go to the diagram for this. So the last way in which this can be achieved, I'll just rub this off, is simply by changing the femoral offset. So this is the medial offset. So just by increasing this, we can achieve more length of the small a, that is the abductor lever. So the abductor lever can be changed in 4 parts by changing the femoral component. So the fourth is by increasing medial, or also called as horizontal offset. So these were the ways in which we can change the acetabular or the femoral component. So acetabulum was medialization of the acetabulum, femoral component had lateralization of greater trochanter, or changing the offsets in 4 ways. Increasing neck length caused limb length discrepancy, hence discontinued now. Decreasing the angle, that is varus, to put the head in a more medial position, 127 degrees is the limit. The last two are the most commonly done things, that is placing the neck collar on a more medial aspect, that is in order to bring the center of the hip joint more medially, and as simple as increasing the medial or horizontal offset. Now the second part of this was lifestyle modifications. Again, another, this lifestyle modifications is more commonly asked than what you would do surgically. Okay, so in the lifestyle modifications you can do two things. I'll be explaining them. One is use of cane. Important part is in opposite hand, that is in the side opposite to the affected extremity. Just remember this important thing. I'll tell you why and I'll explain you why. This is number one. And second is least commonly advisable and least commonly used is use of load in same hand, that is the side which is affected. So use of load is in the same hand, use of cane is in the opposite hand. I'll have to go to a diagram which I picked out of one of the beautiful articles. I'm putting up the link of that article for you to go through it. Just go through it if you can. It is a very nice article on how the cane modifies the forces acting on the hip joint. So this is the diagram which I have taken out of that article. So I'll just label these out. So this is the vertical cane force. So this is the affected hip. Just a second. So this is the affected side and this is the normal side. So the person is holding a cane on this side. So the cane exerts a vertical cane force, that is a vertical ground reaction force upon this hip which goes in this direction. So because of this, just understand this sequence, then it will become very easy. So the cane will exert a vertical force obviously on this hip. So this hip will go this way upwards. In order to balance out this hip, normal biomechanics of the body, there will be a joint reaction force in the exact opposite direction on this hip. So which will bring the hip down. Alright. So because this hip comes down, now we won't say up and down, this hip, this movement is abduction at the pelvis. So this moves into abduction. So this hip will come down. So even this hip will have to move into abduction in order to stabilize the pelvis. Otherwise it will result into Trendelenburg gait. So basically what is happening because of the vertical cane force is I'm sorry I got this wrong. This was the normal side. Really sorry. So this is the normal side, in which we are holding the cane. This is the affected side. So the rest of the things remain the same. So the vertical cane force will come this way on the normal side, and normal hip will exert a downward joint reaction force which will force this hip into this direction, that is into abduction. So this side of the pelvis will come down. As a result of it, in order to balance the pelvis, even this will have to come downwards, that is into abduction. So basically what is happening because of the cane is that the affected hip is being forced into, or the affected pelvis rather, is being forced into abduction. So if the affected pelvis is forced into abduction, in order to achieve the full range of abduction, the abductor muscles do not have to work as much logically, because the hip is already into a certain position of abduction. So in order to achieve a full range of motion which is required, abductor muscles won't have to work as much as they would have to if this hip had started off from the neutral position. So this is how the cane is helping in order to decrease the forces, and as we had discussed earlier, abductor forces are the ones which cause osteoarthritis of the hip. So in a way we are decreasing the abductor muscle forces and thus decreasing the rate of degeneration. Alright, I hope you understood this. Same goes for weight. What happens if we hold the weight? I said weight in the affected extremity, that is on the affected side. Similarly, if we hold a weight on this side, the pelvis will drop on this side because of the weight, which is as good as the pelvis going into abduction. And the same principle, the abductors won't have to work as much, so abductor force will reduce, rate of degeneration will reduce of the hip. So I'll just jot down these points together again so as to revise them. So use of cane in the opposite hand will decrease the abductor force on the affected hip because it will put the affected hip into abduction, and thus the need of abductor force will decrease. Similarly, as I said, use of load in the same hand. However, always remember these are just temporary measures. They do not reverse the degenerative process in any way. This is just conservative management part of a degenerative hip, so lifestyle modifications. Coming to the last part, what is joint reaction force? Now we discussed so many things. This is the last part. This includes a bit of physics and is interesting. Joint reaction force. It is a vector quantity and will be a summation of all forces acting at hip. Alright, so we saw two forces which were acting at hip in the first diagram itself. I'll just go back to that. Alright, so this was the abductor force and the body weight. Okay, so we'll just draw the diagram again over here in order to explain what exactly is the joint reaction force. So this is the fulcrum, that is the hip joint. This is the body weight. This is the abductor force. It doesn't actually act at right angles. It will act somewhere this way because the greater trochanter is situated over here. But for simplifying purpose, we will consider this. And because as a result of this, there will be a joint reaction force which will be created exactly opposite to the summation of these. So it will be created over here. So as this is perpendicular, this will be the joint reaction moment, and the joint reaction force will be at an angle to it. So this is the final JRF which is produced, which will be at an angle theta. We'll consider this angle as theta. Okay, so joint reaction moment JRM will always be equal to sum of the abductor moment, AM we'll call it, and the body weight. Body weight was already at right angle, so the body weight will remain the same. Okay, so joint reaction moment is equal to abductor moment, which was abductor force into the distance, and body weight moment, which was the body weight into the distance, which we discussed earlier. These two quantities remain equal and we discussed how to modify them. So joint reaction moment is a sum of this. Now another interesting fact is that this body weight, so if in case there is an equation to solve or a question to solve, you will be given these two quantities. or you can calculate them of a true size radiograph. So this small a and small b will always be given. So first we have to, and this body weight or the weight that is being exerted to the center will be 5/6 of the total body weight, because the limb in question will not be considered into this. The limb in question is 1/6 of body weight approximately. So 5/6 of body weight, and you will always be given the body weight in the equation. So from the first equation that we had done, small a into big A is equal to body weight into small b. This is given, and this you have 5/6 of the body weight. So you can find out the A, large A, that is the abductor force from that. Once you find out the abductor force, you will get the abductor moment, okay, by multiplying it with the distance. You already have this variable, that is the 5/6 of body weight into the distance. So you will get the joint reaction moment, okay, which is a addition of these two. Coming to the interesting physics part. So this was the JRM, joint reaction moment, that we got, not the joint reaction force. The joint reaction force is lying at an angle theta to the joint reaction moment, and it is a vector quantity. So going back into the extreme basics, if you remember, we used to study trigonometry and we used to study something called as cos theta, and we thought that sine, cos, tan, theta and all, and trigonometry will never come in use in life ahead, and it is coming in use for us now. So cos theta, I'll just make it simple, is equal to adjacent side divided by hypotenuse. So if you see in this is the angle theta. So the adjacent side is the joint reaction moment vector, and the hypotenuse is the joint reaction force. So cos theta will be equal to adjacent side, that is the joint reaction moment which we just got from the earlier equation, and the upon joint reaction force, which is the hypotenuse. So joint reaction force will be nothing but joint reaction moment upon cos theta. You will be always given this angle theta, and you can calculate the joint reaction force from that. So this is the last part of the biomechanics of hip which we wanted to teach. Important thing to remember, the last extra bit was just a pearl. Important thing to remember is sum of the moments will be equal to the joint reaction moment, and you can find out the joint reaction force from that by this equation, cos theta equation. Alright, I hope you understood all of it. Again, hip biomechanics, commonly asked question in the theory, applied concepts are asked in the practical exam in the hip case, and I hope I was able to cover. This will be useful to you while you are studying hip arthroplasty as well. In case you have any doubts, you can message me at that curious orthopod on Instagram. This is my Instagram handle, and I hope you enjoyed this session and it added on to the knowledge that you already possess. I am Dr. Shrikant Sawant. Currently doing my senior resident post in orthopedics at Government Medical College, Baramati. I hope you enjoyed this video, and kindly share it with your colleagues so that the knowledge gets spread. Knowledge spread is always knowledge increased. Thank you so much.